Wall Street bets. My friends, CNBC reports the devastating news. Reddit group Wall Street Bets behind massive GameStop and AMC run-ups goes private. Invitation required. CNBC doesn't like Wall Street Bets because CNBC is where all these crony hedge fund types and Wall Street types go on the TV and essentially it can manipulate markets and trick poor people into losing a lot of money. They say, Wall Street Bets Reddit chat room, where retail investors marshal against short sellers, went private Wednesday. You must be invited to visit this community, the page now states. The forum's members topped 3 million as of Wednesday. The community gathered an army of rookie day traders who go after heavily shorted stocks, pushing share prices higher and squeezing out short-selling hedge funds. My favorite part in all this, everybody loves it. Everybody except the crony establishment elites. But here's what it looks like. You go to Reddit, and right now, you have to be invited to this community. I suppose it means there's about 3 million people who are still able to easily access this and see what's going on. But if you're a layman looking in from the outside and you didn't sign up, like me, you can't see what's going on. So let me show you something real quick. I just want to show you the GameStop stock. It's after hours is at $347.51, my friends. Some regular old people are becoming millionaires off of this. I saw a post from someone, they put like their life savings into it, I guess, and then they made like $1 million. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I think it's hugely risky. And to be fair, there are some of these, Wall Street types who are definitely saying it's a big mistake. These people are going to get hurt. Some people probably will. That's why don't take any advice from anyone here on this show. Anybody saying anything is not advice because we got no idea what we're talking about. We are not stock experts in any capacity. And I think to a certain degree, a lot of people on Wall Street Bets aren't either. However, to be fair, a lot of people who go on TV and tell you what to buy are probably lying too.
Yeah.
That's very
Now here's where it gets really crazy. This is the big drop. Discord bans Wall Street Bets for hate speech. And that's it. That's the lie. That's the trick. They've been talking about how they have to censor everybody for their hate speech because they say naughty things that offend people. But what happens when you get a group of people, a large group of people, thousands, tens of thousands, millions, who are saying, we found out a way to take the money from the 1% and bring it back to the people? Oh my, we've discovered hate speech. We better shut down their ability to coordinate. This to me looks like a dirty game. First they halted trading on the stock market. It was a circuit breaker. So that's when like trading goes too crazy, they stop it. But then we saw that some of these platforms like TD Ameritrade restricted trading. So we know what they're doing behind the scenes. The people at Wall Street Bets even think that there's a coordinated effort to manipulate the market to try and save these hedge funds because someone's got to bail them out. They could end up being in debt $10 billion. I mean, they're gone. Now, I don't know what you guys think. To me, this reeks of phony censorship. Accuse them of hate speech. That way they can try and at least pretend like they have some moral high ground. But who's buying it?
Yeah. I mean, what did you think when you allowed Silicon Valley to aggressively police speech? What did you think was going to happen? Of course, they're going to be using it and abusing it to help out their friends, their family members, the people who serve them, the people who give them money in. And this is huge. According to S3 Partners, short sellers lost $14.3 billion just on GameStop. Not even including all the other ones. GameStop, sorry. GameStop. Exactly. And then other people are answering back saying, no. Short sellers didn't lose. People won and enriched themselves to the tune of $14.3 billion because all the market, manipulators, all these hedge funds managers that are absolutely hated by the left and the right are finally getting a taste of their own medicine. And a lot of people are realizing, hey, it's only capitalism when it benefits them. And we saw massive pushback by CNBC freaking out. CNN wrote an article, how Trumpism explains the GameStop stock surge. Are you kidding me? I mean, if CNN couldn't absolutely hate it when Wall Street hedge funds managers don't get their pound of flesh from Main Street, this absolutely exemplifies it. It's absolutely sickening. When the little guy wins, CNN is always going to be backing the big guy. It's crazy.
Trumpism.
Yes,
Trump's gone. Yeah. I saw a post from someone, they're like, wow, Trump disappeared real quick, didn't he? He's out of the presidency and like, we don't see him, we don't hear from him. So what does CNN do? Well, it's Trumpism. I knew it. We said it was coming.
They're really out of touch because it's just like a bunch of kids. Well, I don't know if they're all kids, but like using Reddit forums. Has nothing to do with Trump. It's been around since before Trump. They did use that tactic to get Trump elected.
Here's what is new, though, guys. And since COVID, there's a lot of working class people stuck at home. Their jobs have been shut down. If you're in the service industry, you're not making near the money that you used to make. Many of the people have lost their jobs. And so, listen, I don't want to cry broke here because I'm not broke. But I will say this about COVID and what has happened is that I got heavily involved with my TD Ameritrade account. I have one that my financial advisor runs, and then I have my own little one that because of COVID and I was at home more, I started paying a lot of attention to. And if there have been stories written, I think like 16 million people have signed up for their own personal accounts. And so what I think is going on here, they're calling a timeout. Like, wow, we got 16 million new traders. There's some people at Reddit that have figured out. They've gathered up people that have been put out of work, the working class, and they figured out how to make money. And we have to call a timeout and figure out how do we respond to all of these new traders and this new economy that's going on in the stock market. And so they're coming up with excuses while they try to figure out how they stop this disruption that
it's taking their money away, bro.
Yes. But just think about what hedge funds represent, the destruction of the little man and the small businessman, the individual restaurant owners, the individual stores and everything is Walmart, everything is Amazon, everything's this big global chain.
Dude.
And I think these people, and again, I don't have a full understanding of Wall Street bets and what's been going on, but it just feels like the working class fighting back and the elites calling a timeout. We got to figure out how to stop them.
That's what the NASDAQ CEO was considering today, thinking about holding and stopping trades to recalibrate their positions to, of course, combat people on Reddit. And now people on Reddit are even, pushing their discussions, making their groups private, which is absolutely crazy here. But one thing that you also brought up during the whole coronavirus 2020 year, stock market speculators were the only ones who made record high profits while everyone else was wiped out. People realize this. People understand that this is not right because when we look at hedge funds managers, the people on Wall Street, they don't provide any services. They don't provide any goods. They literally move around zeros on the computer and make more money for themselves. And people are scratching their heads like, hey, if they could do it, we could do it as well.
But bro, it's fine if someone is like, yo, I got 10,000 shares at $1. Oh, it's $2. I'll sell it. I just made a bunch of money. It's another thing when they start putting shorts on stock where they're basically betting someone's going to fail while saying we're infusing money. But I'll tell you what the problem is. Okay, fine. You want to short sell something? You want to take that bet? It's risky. I accept that too. You want to make a risky bet. You know what I don't like? Is when they short a stock, then they get their buddies to go on TV and go, oh, it's going to be bad. You better sell now. And then everyone panics and the stock crumples. They start laughing because they manipulate the game to make money. This is what they are reaping. This is what they get. And the best part, you were mentioning this with COVID and all that. A lot of these people, young people, a lot of these people needed money real bad. And it took months for the Congress to get these checks out, to even negotiate these things. And some people were desperate, got those and used what they could and did what they did. But there's some people who had some lying around. We just got $600 stimulus checks got sent around. Now you got a bunch of bored people sitting around with their Robinhood accounts, TD Ameritrade, and then someone says, hey, you know those fat cats who made billions of dollars off our back while our economy collapsed? You want to stick it to the man? And they're like, what do I got to do? You got a couple $100? I sure do. From my stimulus, drop it in. My favorite thing about this is the establishment is being hoisted by their own petard.
You know my favorite thing?
They want to pump out these billions of dollars. $1,400 stimulus checks are coming. And what do you think is going to happen when a bunch of these young people are like, screw it, and they dump it all to target these to short squeeze out these hedge fund managers?
It's Robinhood, dude.
Yes,
that's what Robinhood did. Stole from the rich and gave to the poor. And now we're seeing it again digitally. That's not a coincidence. If this really is a simulation.
Dude.
Yeah. And of course,
you're called Robinhood.
Yeah, you're talking about an app that people are using. People are using Cash App. People are using Robinhood. I personally tweeted out my my Cash App, and people are like, "Oh, you're selling what was it, shovels during the gold rush here? I see what you're doing here." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it makes sense." Now, of course, I'm always seeing as this huge merger point of people finally coming together, putting their political differences aside and saying, you know what, everything's rigged. Let's play the market just like they play it.
I hear what you're saying, but you know what I think is more likely to happen is that the hedge funds are going to panic and find Bitcoin because these shorts are being attacked. All right. So I'll try to explain it. I may be getting it wrong because I'm not a stock person. So you guys can super chat and then we'll get to that. But the general idea, my understanding of a short, is that I'll put it this way: like, Ian, let me borrow that share real quick. I'll pay you for it next week. I then sell it to Luke for $10. I'm hoping that in a week it's worth $1. So then I'm holding $10. Here's your $1 for the stock you lent me, right? I'll pay you back for it now. But what happens when I sell it for $10 to Luke, and then a week later it's worth $100, and then Ian comes to me and says, "All right, $100 is due, but I only have $10. I don't got the stock anymore." So what they're doing is by everyone buying into these stocks, the value skyrockets. And then the crazy thing is, these hedge funds who short the stock, there's no bottom. It's a near infinite potential loss. If the GameStop stock goes to $5,000, which I'm not saying it will, then for every share that they sold at $6, they owe that $5,000, and they only got $6. So they're looking at, what do you say, Luke, like $14 billion lost?
It just on, according to S3 Partners, just in GameStop alone.
I am not offering anyone advice, advocating for, or encouraging anything, but I will tell you my opinion. Oh man, I love it. I love it so much.
I got mixed feelings because it's dangerous for people to coordinate and game the stock market. Like, but it's
that's
totally
what goes on every
possible.
day.
That's what they do.
That's exactly what they do, bro.
That's the name of the job.
Listen. Look at, who was it? Loeffler and Purdue. Were they the ones?
Oh, they were the ones.
Who
Yeah.
they
It was
they
like
moved
Loeffler.
these stocks around. Loeffler. They moved these stocks around just before COVID or whatever, and they got called out for it, and they said it was totally legit, and we weren't the ones who did it. Sure.
Didn't Weinstein do
Wealthy
that too?
individuals with connections and with access always know the right moves to make.
Yeah.
It's just convenient, isn't it?
But also, let's just think about the really wealthy people and the connected people, the globalists, and I'll get fried for using that word. Maybe I don't know, but the global, when they're shutting down the economy, sending everyone home, put masks on, you can't work. They see the stock market crash, and the globalists have all the money to invest in the stock market as it crashes, and they've benefited, and everybody knows it. If you got a brain and you've been following, the rich made a ton of money during COVID. Yep. I'm embarrassed, and I'm not super rich, but I'm embarrassed by how much money I've made during COVID by buying devalued stock and then sitting back for the last 6 months and watching it grow.
Yep.
It's embarrassing how much money I've made sitting on my rear end at home.
It is a transfer of wealth from the working class to the rich. And when I hear about millions of regular people saying, "I got a stimulus check, let's do it," you know what that is? We had a bunch of people storm the Capitol. That was dumb. It accomplished nothing. They're going to charge people with sedition. Nothing's accomplished from it. Now the feds are like, "We want more security powers." Nothing gets accomplished. I'll tell you what really scares them. When you go after their pocketbook, when the regular working people figured out a way to stick it to the man, and so they panicked so hard, it's hate speech.
It's our
Shut
only
it down.
solution.
They're bigots.
Economics is our only solution.
Yeah.
Again, no, seriously. We can't count on the ballot anymore. We can't vote them out. But if we can make them pay an economic price for the exploitation of the working class, then you have a shot.
Yeah,
I'm loving the left and the right together on this one. Yes. I'm seeing like leftists. You got Kyle Kalinske, you got Vosh. They're all like, "This is fantastic."
Yeah.
You got right wing individuals cheering for it, and I'm sitting back like, "Yes, unity."
Yeah. I mean, this
unity.
is why we've been saying voting with your dollar is extremely important. And when we look back at previous movements like Occupy Wall Street, we could make fun of them, we could ridicule them, but one of the major success stories was them disinvesting from major big banks and investing in smaller community-based banks. And that's one of the success stories that I think shook a lot of people from the core. And I think a lot of people were shook, especially from the reaction from the mainstream media, especially from the reaction of big tech, and also from the response that we got from the White House today as Biden's press secretary was asked about this. And her only response was, "Do you know we have a female Treasury Secretary?" Literally, that was her response. And the female Treasury Secretary, by the way, Janet Yellen, former head of the Federal Reserve, who also gave speeches to Wall Street to the tune of millions of dollars. She enriched herself for giving speeches to Wall Street and also was a part of the same institution that bailed out all these big Wall Street banks and firms. During the COVID scandal, we have to understand there was a huge transfer of wealth that no one wants to talk about, where the Federal Reserve printed a crap ton of money and literally gave it to all these speculators, gave it to Wall Street, so their losses were literally privatized. Their profits, whenever they make money, that of course is pure capitalism. But when they lose money, the government steps in. Now they have a potential of losing more money because of independent small action of Redditors, and now they're freaking out talking about, look, but we have a female. Look how diverse we are. Are you kidding me?
You know what's funny about this is that what we're watching right now are these billionaires having their wealth redistributed among this community of 3 million people. And I'm like, that sounds awfully like what these socialists have been calling for some time, but everyone's cool with it because it wasn't done through government. It was done through the market.
Yeah.
And so everyone, so the left is basically like, well, it wasn't government, but you did redistribute wealth. And then the people on the right are like, these monopolistic oligarchs are getting what's coming to them, and it's through the market. Everybody's happy.
We got to be careful in the coming years because I think this is going to continue, this like coordinated stock buys and sells and stuff. Be careful about buying stock on margin. This is what happened during the Great.
Must stress, you got to get your own financial advisors because we are just a bunch of morons who know very little.
Use history as a lesson, as a book, as a history book.
Yeah, not financial advice, but me personally, I don't invest any money that I'm not afraid of losing. Whether it's cryptocurrency, silver, gold, bullets, even stonks. Personally, I'm not going to spend it if I can't afford to lose it. That's me personally. Not telling you what to do. Not financial advice. We have to stress this enough because again, I think all of us are involved in the stock market in one way, or another, and we have to disclose this. And there's a bunch of weird particular rules surrounding this particular issue as well.
Like Jason, I got in during COVID to the stock market.
I love this saying that the market will remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. So these people who are placing these bets or buying on margin, when those calls come in and you got to pay up, you might be like, that makes no sense. Why is GameStop at $350? It's a failing retail market. Doesn't matter. The market speaks. And so what we're seeing from this, in my opinion, we got Joe Biden cranking out executive orders like nobody's business, like history, right?
I just counted 37 presidential actions. But they're presidential actions. I don't know if they're all executive order.
Well, because they could be memorandums. But either way, it is trying to establish, in effect, changing the rules, changing the law. This, in my opinion, is a sign of decay of the system. The legislation's not working anymore. Joe Biden's come in and he's just rubber stamping whatever they want. Then you also have people showing how broken the market is. For a year, when our economy was in shambles, people were making billions off speculating. You got people, their stock value skyrocketing. And I understand it's not liquid cash, right? They're getting net worth and net value. But traders were selling and were making money. They were getting liquid cash out of the system while people weren't working. Then we saw the government print all this money, trillions of dollars, and they're going to do it again. The system is in decay. This, to me, is a sign of major instability. I'm not entirely confident about what comes next. We've talked about civil conflict, whatever you want to call it. What happened? Man, I got to tell you, when we've talked about like Weimar Germany and the mass printing of money and people shoveling money into the gutter and stuff, we are looking at this crazy economic instability. What happens when the system shuts down? When they try everything in their power to stop the people from rising up. So what do? We're halting trading. We're circuit breaking the stock. You can't trade anymore. That didn't work. Well, then ban them for hate speech.
Yep.
People are going to be like, that's BS, dude. You keep changing the rules and moving the goalposts. Every time we figure out a way to stick it to the man, to find a way to finally get the wealth out of the hands of the 1%. They change the rules again. And when the rule changes don't work, they scream hate speech. Eventually, people are going to say the system is so broken, there's no point in playing anymore. And then it falls down.
Yeah, but again, a bigger point to add here, no matter who made money today, we also have to realize a big fact here that tens of millions of people woke up to how the game is rigged.
Exactly.
We had a very...
What woke them up?
Yeah.
What woke them up?
CNN, CNBC.
Trump.
I mean,
Trump.
We can make another argument that, but again, today's a very special day because it is the rare occurrence where wealth finally transferred from Wall Street to Middle Street. Usually it goes from Middle Street to Wall Street.
Main Street.
Main Street. Usually it goes from Wall Street to Main Street. Today it went from Wall Street to Main Street.
Usually it goes Main Street to Wall Street.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying.
They use these tricks.
Like
you know what really made me angry, man? I'm really angry. When Bitcoin was reaching like 38, 39K, I saw these articles pop up. Investors could lose everything in Bitcoin.
I saw one of those.
These people took out loans and they're going to lose everything. And I'm like, dude, I knew what the game was. They wanted you to get scared. They wanted you to sell so they could buy it cheap. When it was at like 38, 39, you had people who finally poor people see cryptocurrency and they're like, I'm going to buy some of this. It's going up. There's real value here. Well, the fat cats, the big firms, the big funds, they're like, how can we get more of this? But I don't want to spend that much. Can we get our cronies in media to freak the people out and make them think they'll lose it all so they sell and then we buy at a premium? And it works. They do it over and over and over again. And now they're reaping the reward of their own broken system.
It's crazy because you're not allowed to go out and say, like, you can't go out and say, hey, sell your Bitcoin. But an article can be written about how dangerous it is.
So CNBC and their friends, they could write an article saying, it's really bad to buy this. Don't do it. Meanwhile, the billionaires are laughing all the way to the bank, and the working class people are the ones getting screwed over.
Tim, you made your point wonderfully. I just want to repackage and restate your point to me, my interpretation of your point. I think America tried to speak through politics, through the ballot. Hey, we don't like politicians, so we're going to elect a reality TV star.
Yeah.
Then now that they've totally rejected that, they've turned to, okay, we're going to take money from you to try to express our dissatisfaction. So it goes from the ballot to the dollar, and the only option left is the gun.
What was that saying about the boxes?
Yeah.
The ballot box and the cartridge box or whatever, something saying like that.
Box, yeah.
I'm scared of that. I'm scared of the idea that if people are told that you're not even allowed to play the game, like the rich people get special privileges. You know what I saw in Barron's, this magazine? They said we need a 30-day stop on GameStop stocks because these poor, unsophisticated investors are going to be hurt by this. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Look, some dude takes his check. He's got $600. He pays his rent. He's got a couple $100 left. You know what his worst case scenario is? When this person puts $200 into some stock and it crumbles, he lost $200. I'm sure he or she will be upset about it. They will be upset about it. But with these hedge funds are going to lose billions. So no, they're not concerned about the poor, unsophisticated investor who might lose a couple $100. They've never cared about these people. They're worried about their buddies and their hedge funds, which are going to lose billions. And that's it. System crumbles.
You know, Tim, without government, who's going to make sure that the stocks don't rise too quickly, right? I mean, and that's exactly what's happening here. And it's so absurd because we're having people invest in a company, invest in the stock market, something that a government should see and say, yeah, that's great. People are investing and having trust in our big financial institutions that are usually rigged against them. But because they're so rigged, because they're so manipulated, people are using those same tricks and they're having a mirror to this corrupt, nasty little witch that is the financial system, and it's finally seeing itself in its own reflection, and it's saying, oh my goodness, I am ugly. I created these rules, and these rules are slapping me upside the head, and I'm becoming a lot uglier as the time goes on.
Let's talk about this Trumpism article. This is an amazing article.
Yeah,
all right, check this out. From CNN, how Trumpism explains the GameStop stock surge. Spoiler alert, it doesn't, but let's read anyway from Chris Cillizza. He says at the core of Donald Trump's angry populist appeal was and is this sentiment, quote, the elites think they know better than you. They think they can tell you how to live and what to believe. But guess what? We, the people, are smarter than the elites. Let me stop you right there, Chris. Do think that. And we, the people, as a decentralized, distributed computing network, are smarter than you. It's why communism doesn't work, because a committee can't figure out how to distribute resources better than a decentralized network of individuals who are seeking the things they need and want. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a laissez-faire capitalist. I think there are still problems there. But yeah, we see it in computing. A distributed network is better than a single point of failure. I digress. He says Trump elucidated this argument in its purest form at a rally in North Dakota in 2018. He's bringing up the correct point in kind of the wrong way. Mm-hmm. It's not Trumpism. Trump did not create this. Trump is a symptom of this. Guess what? The elites have been saying we're smarter than you. They have been using revolving door politics where the people from the biggest corporations get the jobs in government overseeing the same company they just worked for as CEO, or starting wars and selling the bombs from government back to their friends in those companies. We know what they do, and we know the games they play. We know the bailouts they get. When they fail, they say, oh, well, we have to save them. They're too big. But when mom and pop shops fail, they say, sorry, too bad. Why don't you apply for unemployment? Maybe 6 months, we'll kick you a check. That isn't enough to buy a loaf of bread. Yep. More importantly, let's even talk about schools. I'm not a fan of college, but they are telling these people your only choice is to go to college, racking up massive debt for young people who find no way out. The system is crumbling. The elites have been milking it and extracting it forever. And it's gotten to the point where people are saying enough. And now the best part is the left and the right are both laughing as this happens. But to claim it's Trumpism, no, you see, Trump was the imperfect avatar for people who felt this anger. But there are people who couldn't agree with his policies. As a man, he couldn't represent this entity well enough. With Trump gone, that entity is now in its purest form, the rage of the people staring at the elites who have been stripping out their value and kicking them down and mocking them is now just been unleashed. And this is what we get.
Like Obi-Wan Kenobi, man.
Yes.
Struck him down. Now he's a being of light.
Yep.
Chris, the author of this article, actually tweeted it, and the number one response right now is a picture of Ralph with a flute in his nose, with 1,500 likes right now. And I'm reading some of the replies, and a lot of people are just like, "What are you talking about?" And you're right. He had a hard time explaining what was happening, so he just did the laziest thing he could and said, "It's all because of this one guy."
Trumpism.
Yeah.
I want to share this story. I'm not endorsing what I'm about to share the story, but I live in Middle America. I live in Tennessee. I live in Nashville. And the problem with a lot of the media, they live in New York or LA. They're totally disconnected from real people. I live in Nashville, right downtown. It's a very popular bar across the street from me. I went and watched Sunday football. There was a young man in the bar wearing a hat, and he was with a big group of people, and he walked by to go to the bathroom. I said, "What's on your hat?" And it said, "Make politicians afraid again."
Oh.
And that's the sentiment you have in the South, in Tennessee, where I live. Nashville is a relatively liberal city. It's had a liberal mayor, a Democratic mayor since like the 1960s or 70s. But that guy's sentiment on his hat that he's wearing out in a crowded bar, everybody watching football, no one bats an eye at thinking like that. And so you're right. Again, Trump, imperfect avatar, but if we let people express their anger through the ballot, it's a lot better than these other methods that they're going to go to. And if we don't restore some integrity in our election process, we're just, we're headed for civil conflict.
Well, I got this quote. This is the 4 boxes of liberty, which we briefly mentioned. They say Larry McDonald, a politician from Georgia and former president of the John Birch Society, has also been quoted, omitting the caution to use bullets as the last resort. Quote, "We have 4 boxes with which to defend our freedom: the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the cartridge box. The term is used in newspaper articles and has been used in a petition to the Supreme Court of California. 4 boxes and derivatives have been used in the name of various websites that espouse patriotism and the right to bear arms." I think there's a better quote that's probably safer to use. "Those that make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable." And that was, we talked about Kennedy who said that. And so it's similar. When people soapbox and they stand up and say this must happen, and then big tech bashes them over the head and knocks them to the dirt, well, then they go to the ballot box, they cast their votes. Then we saw Trump bring people to the jury box, sort of. They went to the courts, they tried. And then what we saw was people storm the Capitol. So it's a low-grade version, and it's scary because we don't want conflict. We want people to figure out a path forward. But I tell you right now, what we're seeing with this GameStop Wall Street stuff is populist anger. You know what's funny is there are a lot of establishment Democrat types who are scared of the word populist. They don't know what it means. You're either a populist or you're an elitist. I understand it's not absolute, but the general idea is for, of, and by the people, or for the establishment elites, the cronies, the people with the money, the people born in the wealth. The way I look at populism is popular ideas for the population, ideas that the people want and need. So when you have the left and the right completely disagreeing on how to implement the policies to make things better, but completely agreeing the establishment is crooked and corrupt and cheering this on, well, then we are seeing some kind of raw unified force. It's not going to be politically unified, because the politics, the political parties and the ideologies are more of effigies or avatars of this ideology or anger. No, what we're seeing now is pure rage. Like when you see people go out in the street and riot, pure rage. There's no rhyme or reason. What we're seeing now with Wall Street Bets is just digital. It's online. It's more strategic. But a lot of people are throwing their money behind this, not expecting to get rich.
Tim, do you think, because my concern as a black person is I'm wondering, it's like when I'll have a conversation with my mother about all of this, and she's so into Democratic politics. She's such a Barack Obama. I'm not even sure if she fully understands what's going on in this country. as it relates to working class versus the elite. My mother was a 30-year factory worker. She is as working class as it comes, but she's so into Democratic politics that I think she thinks she's an elite because of the life that I provide her, probably. But I think she thinks she's an elite, and everything to her, or I don't want to speak for her, but for a lot of black people, everything comes down to race. Trump supporters, they're racist. So it doesn't matter that they stormed the Capitol and confronted white politicians. That was racism. That was...
It's the divide and conquer. Now, first, I'll say it again, because I think they accomplished nothing by doing this, storming the Capitol. But divide and conquer, man. When we had Occupy Wall Street, Luke and I met at Occupy Wall Street, and we're like on mirror images. We both took the political compass test. I'm center left, Luke center right, but we met at the same place because Occupy Wall Street attracted libertarian types, right, ANCAPs, anarcho-communist leftists, but something disrupted all that. Identity politics. That came in and dominated the discussion, and it pushed out anybody else who might actually align. And so that was divide and conquer.
Yeah, I mean, that's why a few weeks ago we were talking about this, and I'm like, there's going to be a huge anti-establishment swell that's going to come after people realize about how Joe Biden is invested in the special interests that don't serve them, that screw the American people. I think we're seeing the first steps of this, and I think we still have a lot more to go, a lot more to do, and I think this is going to become more and more prevalent as we're going to see this kind of new emergence of a new kind of Occupy Wall Street populist movement that's going to be against the establishment. We're seeing it here. I mean, I was telling you it's going to happen a few weeks ago. I think we're at the beginning of it. It might be the stock thing. It might be another thing, but I think we're headed towards a lot of people being extremely discontent with the current system, realizing it, organizing, and moving forward. I mean, we're seeing almost close to civil wars breaking out in places like Holland right now over, of course, the lockdown issues. And that's only just one issue out of many issues that people are getting screwed over with.
Look at Vladimir Putin saying in Davos, we're in an era that was just like pre-World War II. And so we're dangerously close to something truly traumatic and devastating in this planet. We talked about this before, the mass printing of money. Do you know that somewhere around like 60 to 66% of all US dollars were printed in the past like 10 months, around that? Never happened before. And so you have to imagine there's going to be some rapid and dramatic instability or mass divide between the rich and the poor getting worse. Economic inequality leads to serious economic instability. Angry poor people come out, show up with pitchforks when they realize there's no path forward for them.